Hello, I'm LukeNevell and I'm here today to give a quick tutorial video on how to use the VLOOKUP function in Excel and also pivot tables. I learnt these skills on my second work placement, and that placement was with Thiess Australia. A bit of history about Thiess. They started in 1930s as road contractors but quickly grew in the 1940s to mining, infrastructure, construction, and then they were taken over by Laytons in modern times, and as of this year they're now only mining, but I worked last year in their last of their construction works on the QCLNG project. Products and services they provide, as I said, they're a massive company, so they do a lot of stuff across the board, but basically I was working under the construction sector and just making sure deadlines were met on our contracted work on a gas plant for QGC. Okay, the context of these VLOOKUPs function and pivot table skills that I learned, I found they were very good for anything to do with materials, stock takes or ordering of materials, and also the VLOOKUP function was very good for progress tracking when I had to take data from one of the many massive spreadsheets that had been created for the project. So first I'll get into some also learning outcomes before we start. By the end of this, you'll want to be able to successfully use a VLOOKUP function in Microsoft Excel 2010, successfully use pivot tables in Excel, be able to manipulate spreadsheets so that you can derive the required information you want to see. So if you only want to see the total costs of all the gaskets you need to order, then that's all you'll see. You won't have to look at a massive page of data, and you'll also be able to apply these skills and find useful applications in future. Okay, so let's get into teaching you the VLOOKUP function. Firstly, one way you can access it is under the Formulas tab. It's in Lookup and Reference, VLOOKUP, and that'll bring up this function arguments box. So what this function basically does is it'll look up a value in a table array, which can be, say, a different tab or a different spreadsheet altogether, and then you can return a different column's value for that to basically get data. So it's probably easier if I just show you. Say each material, as I've previously said, has a set commodity code. So we're going to look up the commodity code in the B2 cell, and we're going to look that up in our reference sheet. So we want to highlight the entire sheet, and it's important to hit F4 on each of these to add the dollar signs to make them absolute values. Otherwise, when you drag the cell down, the table array will also go down, which can cause a lot of problems. So then we want the column index number. So this should be remembered that it's the number. So we want to find the gasket size of G100s, and that is in column B2, so B would be the second column. So simply hit 2. You don't have to put any other spreadsheet formulas or anything in. And for our range lookup down here, it says we have true and false. False is an exact match, so it won't return a value unless it exactly comes up with G100 in the column in the lookup value, and true will basically come up with the closest value. So we want to make sure we use false here because we don't want it to return non-positive data, because it's sometimes better, I found, for an error to pop up to realize you've gone wrong than for a wrong piece of data to pop up and you just completely miss it. So if we drag that down now, that should take all of those cells. We'll just do it again here. You can also type the formula in if you want. Don't forget to add the bracket, and then I like to click here just to bring this box up again because I find it's a bit more explanatory and easy to use. So we'll look up the same value in our column, and it'll be the same table. What's important also to note is that you have to be looking up the value in the leftmost column of, say, our reference table, because it will always look it up in the leftmost column of the selected table. That's just how the function works. So if, say, you wanted to look up a value of 10 and return a value of G100, the formula just simply wouldn't work. So back to what we were looking for, we wanted the material, so in this case that's the fourth column now. And then back to our range of false again, so that'll bring back stainless steel. If we drag that down, we can see all the different materials. Come on to do the same with the cost. So we'll go by a commodity code because we know that's what they all share in common, whereas looking up, say, a line number simply wouldn't work in this stance. Good old table array will stay the same. Our column index number this time will be 5, and our range will be false once again. So there we go, and if we do a quick check to say a G400 should be a 40mm stainless steel gasket that costs $400. G400 is 40mm stainless steel and costs $400. Another good thing is you don't have to pull all the info if you don't need it. Like you could have 50 columns here worth of stuff and you may only want a couple bits of data, so you can do that. Okay, now what we want to do is use pivot tables to give a good summary of this. So highlight all your data and go to insert pivot table, and I like to put them in a new worksheet, but you can just as easily drop them anywhere in your existing one. So we can quickly rename this to a pivot table. And if you ever lose this toolbar on the right, just click back on your table and reappear. So let's say we want to find out how many gaskets we need to order and the total cost it's going to cost us. We've got our 4 squares here, so we will drag our gasket commodity code into our row labels and it will show up. And then under cost, it'll show up as a sum at the moment. First, let's say we want to change that to a count, so we can go to value field settings and change that to a count, and that'll tell us we need to order 3 G100 gaskets. But we can also drag it in twice, so we have a sum and a count, and with just a quick bit of formatting, that can look a lot nicer with its actual dollar signs. Now what else we probably want to know is filters. So often you may only want to see a certain filter, so if you drag, say, the ordered column down, it'll appear as a filter. And if you look in our line list, we can see that some of these have already been ordered, so we obviously don't want to order them twice, so let's just look at the ones that haven't been ordered, and you'll see the list decrease and you still have your new total sum of the cost it's going to cost you, and we now need to order 8 gaskets. Another thing you can do with that is, say, you also want to have 2 filters on, so you only want to look at the carbon steel gaskets, and that'll drop again. Another big advantage of using lookup tables is basically it can automatically update. So let's say the price of that type of gasket drops to $50. If we go back through our line list, it's automatically updated. And then if we go back to our pivot table, we can go to data refresh and it'll refresh that. So basically, if prices change or anything else in one of your big spreadsheets and you've set up all your others right, it should automatically do it, which can save you a ridiculous amount of work. Not really when you're working in this scale, but when you're working with like 1,000 to 10,000 things, it saves you a lot of time. So yeah, other things you can do, you can drag many things in, so you can say have each line and see on line 104 we need 1 G150 and that's $50, and yeah, it's just very flexible. So I thought it was a very useful skill to learn on placement that's applicable to a lot of stuff, and I thought I'd teach that. Thanks a lot for your time and good luck on using this skill in future.